as of now, the so basically the World Youth Festival is going to happen in Russia, and it's
Okay.
yeah, being undertaken in association with the Ministry of Youth Affairs of Russia. So it's called
Okay.
Rosmo in Russian, and it's roughly translated into Federal Agency of Youth Affairs, government of Russia. It's the and it has a national preparatory committee for India. And under which 11 Indians are part of that committee. I'm one of the Indians
Really?
who is
Wow.
part of the national committee of the World Youth Festival.
Hello and welcome. Welcome once again to another episode of Say Something with Mads. I have Sashwat Pandey who is joining me from a very cold place. He's joining from New Delhi. He has given his time to join for this podcast, and I'm so glad finally I could have him on my channel. Shashwat, welcome to my channel.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Right. So, without further ado, I know a lot about him, but I wish and I want Shashwat to tell a bit about himself so that our audience get familiarized with whom we are speaking. Let's start about from your childhood till your college, till what you're doing now. So let's hear from you. So over to you, Shashwat.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that interesting question. So, I come from, so I was basically born and brought up in this city in the northern state of India called Uttar Pradesh. And the city that I come from is Varanasi. So I was born there. If you look at Varanasi from the outside, it has a very, especially if you look at it, it has a very traditional kind of an outlook, in the sense that it's a, it's a place which has a lot of religious importance, a lot of religious and cultural importance, and but I think as so that was the kind of context, or let's say positionality, that where I come from. I did my schooling there, as I said, and after completing my schooling, I went on to join Delhi University, and I joined St. Stephen's College in Delhi University. I when I was in my school, I chose humanities as a discipline. So what happened, it has also a very interesting kind of aspect to it, in the sense that in 10th, what the traditional outlook is that people who tend to score a higher marks, or let's say tend to score good marks in India, they are supposed to take the STEM. They're supposed to opt for the STEM. They're supposed to take sciences or maths and so on. So but I, as someone who was always very much interested in the social sciences, who always had this particular curiosity towards the world I was around, as to kind of there was this all constant curiosity as to understanding people better, knowing people better, how and why things are the way they are.
Mm.
It's social sciences that I found my answer. And in fact, in class 10th, my teachers and including my principal wanted me to take the sciences. And
Mhm.
I was someone who didn't want to take the sciences at all. And it was my so it was one of the early and rather important decision that took. And I ended up taking social sciences, humanities, something that I kind of did my schooling with. And then I went on to complete my bachelor's in history. So I did a BA
Okay.
history honors from St. Stephen's University of Delhi.
Right. If I have to ask you to describe your childhood in 3 words, which are the 3 words comes to your mind?
Right. So the three words that come to my mind when I think of my childhood is one, that I was very naughty. Naughty is the word that I would go for. Second, travel. I traveled a
Mm-hmm.
lot.
Mm-hmm.
And third, I think most of it, given that most of it was centered around my school academics and so on. So I think, and given it was one of the most essential aspect of it, something that I was always worried about in a way, so I think education, maybe education would be the word that describes my child.
Right, right, all right. So, all Indian households Indian childhood revolves around this big, heavy term education. Okay, all right. But I must ask you that when you decided in your 10th grade to go for humanities, so was there a complete, as you said, your teachers wanted you to take science, but what about your parents? They were okay with your choice, or
Yeah,
did you have to
so
convince them?
yeah, so something that I've been always grateful about is that I have very understanding parents. Parents,
Mm,
it's not just about being understanding, but also about being confident and trusting me with my own
mm,
decisions. And I think this
mm,
is something that is very essential part of growing up, in the sense that I think unless people start believing, because of course growing up starts from your own family, right? You don't grow
mm.
up, we have our ideas of growing up, right? We say that growing up in a corporate ladder, growing up in, let's say, academics and so on, right? But I think the very first growing up happens, of course, back in your home, within family. And I think when people start trusting you, when and who are these people? These people are your parents, of course. These people are your immediate family, right? And if they trust you with your decisions, I think you build a certain kind of confidence, and also the ability to take decisions for yourself, especially when these are difficult, right? This something that I've realized regarding decision making is that in difficult times, it turns out to be a very essential skill, who trust
Mm,
me, believe me with the decisions. So I think the teachers, as I said, didn't want me to go with the social sciences. But when I discussed this issue back home, there was a certain consensus that we were easily able to go to. When I
mm,
raised this with my father and mother, they were like, this is something that you want to do. This is something that
mm,
they asked me this question, that are you sure about this? Are you confident
mm,
about this? And I was like, hell
mm,
yeah. I definitely,
mm.
this is something that I want to do. And they were up for it. They were like,
That's wonderful. Um, I wish parents are listening to this and trusting their children from child very young age also gives them the confidence of maybe you can make a mistake, maybe you can turn back and say that was not a great choice. What if this happened? But the blame you have to take on yourself, right? That nobody pushed me. I did it. I didn't do well. So it's all upon me. So there comes starting where you take the accountability, responsibility, etc. So wonderful. I was going to ask you about your grandfather because I read on your post that you want to continue with your his legacy. I one of your Instagram posts said that, so I picked it up and I said, let's start with your grandfather, and then you already spoke about your parents, how supportive they are. So tell me about your grandfather and what was he doing and why you said that you want to continue with the legacy.
right. So, when my grandfather led a typical academic life.
Mhm.
He was an academic, in every sense of the word. So he was, I guess, one of the first, to the best of my knowledge, he was one of the first and only person from his village to kind of, took up graduation and, post graduation and so on, further his studies. He, at a very young age, after his studies, he went to Calcutta, which was there back then,
Yeah.
the hub of intellectuals in a certain way, hub of almost all things, if I were to say, right? And he went to Calcutta. He was he held multiple administrative and academic posts. He was part of the West Bengal Education Board as well. In
Okay.
fact, his books, he was an author. He published multiple books. His In fact, his books continue to be part of the MA syllabus in the current
Oh, wow.
CBCS system in higher
Yeah.
education in India, and in
Please take his
multiple.
name.
Yeah, so my grandfather was Sri Shivlochan Pandey.
Okay,
Yeah, and his books are
right.
part of the MA CBCS syllabus. Continue to be,
Mm.
yeah, in multiple central universities across India.
Amazing. So, no wonder you want to safeguard his legacy and continue it. And talk about, let's talk from his being an author to your being a writer. You are also an author, right? You have published books. So, at
Yeah.
what age and what did you write?
Right. So I think the idea of appreciating, literature is something that I got from him, in the sense
Okay.
that at a very early age, we used to discuss Wordsworth, Shakespeare, and so
Oh,
on.
okay. Hmm.
Yeah. Renaissance and so on. In fact, something that I till date kind of regret in a certain way is that uh, one of the things that he asked me for was, so there's this particular novel which also turned out to be a movie later on, and it's called Ben Hur,
Yeah, Ben Hur.
Benhur.
Yes, I have a. It's a classic movie, classic, and I think my dad introduced me to this movie as a Western classic. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. So this was a movie that he wanted to watch. He wanted, and this is something that I could, by the time that I could arrange and make him watch. He left us, and and this is something till date that I
Ah,
regret that.
yeah. So yeah, I was. My question is, what did you write on? What is your topic of the book you wrote?
Yeah. So the whole writing thing, that happened for me was actually rather spontaneous. So in the sense that it wasn't as planned as one would thought a typical book is, and it was because it was part of this thing, a national level competition,
Okay,
wherein
right.
a set of editors and journalists were looking for young authors, right, across
Mm-hmm.
India. So, to the best of my knowledge, some 200 schools were participating in this large, nation, scale competition, wherein, on multiple stages they were filtering students, right? And
Mm-hmm.
this was happening on on certain durations, right? After certain months, right? So, and I happen to be someone who cleared the stages. So we were given prompts actually, and this was, imagine, some 200 schools are participating, and all students of that particular school are given a prompt to write a story, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I clear the first stage, I clear the second stage, I clear the third stage, and then I go on to give an interview to these editors who also had a background in journalism and so on. And I work with them, and it was the product of working with them that turned out to be a book, which is
Ah,
known
right.
as Here Comes the Sun. And in that particular book, I because I, as someone who was always interested in, as I said, social sciences, right? Someone who was always kind of looking out for reasons, and looking out for as to what's happening, what's out there, what's beyond the daily, the mundane that we tend to see and kind of overlook, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was somewhere around that got into my imagination, and that later turned out to be this book. And I so it's if I were to talk about the synopsis, what I roughly talk about in the story. So it's basically a child prodigy, uh, who and how he kind of gets himself into this international conflict of between two nuclear powers, and and
Oh, my.
how, yeah, so how someone who could have been, let's say, taken a very different path, turns out to be who hates the state, right? Because of this particular conflict. So
Mm,
it's an imaginary story. It's a fiction,
right.
and
Tell me about your journey from a small town of Varanasi to St. Stephen's. How has been the transition, and when you what was your learning in St. Stephen's? Was there any challenges you faced? Then when you are out of the college, what, when you look back, what did you think that St. Stephen's changed you as a person?
So on the very first day of college, and our principal, Professor John Burgess, was addressing us, right? Why am I trying to kind of bring this anecdote is that how even expectations change people, how even expectations kind of change your outlook or how you think. This is why I'm kind of sharing this
Hmm,
particular
hmm,
anecdote. On the
hmm,
very first day of college, we are being, and mind you, this is a college which was established in 1881, which has
hmm.
given India's, intellectuals,
Yeah.
politicians, bureaucrats, diplomats in very huge numbers, right? When you talk about St. Stephen's, the words that come to your mind is elitism. The words that you
Hmm.
come to mind
Yeah.
is that the ruling elite of India, right? The political elite of India, and so on, right? You tend to hear stories of how different batches talk about how this particular, and this is a single college, mind you. This is not even a university. Delhi University
Hmm.
has some 80 plus colleges, and this is only one of the colleges. So on the very first day of college, our principal, after talking about the college, and everything, says that he has one thing to ask from us, from all of us.
Hmm. Hmm.
And he said that Stephanians, as the students of St. Stephen's are called, right? Stephanians have brought a lot of accolades to college, right? Since very long, right? As I said, the college is one of the oldest in India. It was established in 1881, as I said, but it has given us a lot of accolades. We have intellectuals, we have leaders in almost every sphere today, right? But there is one thing that I want to ask from all of you, my dear students. And we were like, what's that? What is our professor asking from us? And he said, I want you people to bring the Nobel Prize to college. And we were like,
Hmm.
wow,
Wow.
is this something that could be expected out of us? I mean,
Hmm.
the very question, the very expectation that indeed it is something that you can get, that indeed it is something that you are capable of. I mean,
Hmm.
before that induction, I could not have, or I'm not sure if any other student would have been even able to imagine that we are the kind of people, or let's say, what I basically mean is that, this is something that could be expected out of us. I mean, this is
Hmm.
something,
Right.
you don't think of that, you
Hmm.
could aim for the Nobel Prize. These aren't the things that, as part of the growing up process in Eastern Uttar Pradesh, as someone from Varanasi could think of, even,
Yeah.
imagine,
Yeah.
getting a
Yeah.
Nobel.
I got
So
it. So, yeah. So it must have been like, wow, where am I? Where it's like Oxford, Cambridge of India, right? That kind of feel. Wonderful. Coming back to the most important why you are here, because of the connection which you had with Varanasi hosting the Y20 summit, right? This year was something which is your city, and you're coming back as you were heading the communication section. Just let me know more about this. Let us know, our audience know about your connection with the Y20 summit, which is a part of G20 presidency of India, and how did you get connected to it, and how was the culmination right from the beginning to the end? Let's hear the story from you.
right. So the basically, in order to give a better sense of as to what Y20 was, Y20 was basically the official youth engagement group of G20. And G20 basically, other than, of course, its core objectives, also functions with its engagement groups, right? Which
Hmm.
later go on to create a white paper and communique. And,
Hmm.
it's part of the resolution of G20, it's part of the
Yeah.
summit. So just like any other professional opening that happens, and I think a lot of people who are, let's say, applying to Niti Aayog, which happens to be the national think tank of India. And so there are multiple openings that happen across universities, sorry,
Okay.
ministries, sorry,
Okay.
across
Hmm.
ministries, and these are
Hmm.
young professionals and so on. So it's a very has a very basic and typical process of going to the website, applying, filling a form, you have to ensure that you fulfill the eligibility criteria and so on. You are supposed to give an interview and so on, and that's how you end up joining, working with the government. So it could be in multiple forms, as I said. For instance, just to give you an example, in fact, till very recently, Ministry of External Affairs was taking interns. Niti Aayog continues to take interns and young professional almost every month. In fact, their deadline is the 10th of every month.
Oh,
So
okay.
if you,
Thanks for
yeah,
sharing
so
this. Yeah. Okay. I didn't know about
so
this.
for
Yeah.
every young student, undergraduate, graduate student, or even young professionals who are watching this, every 10th of January is not January. Every 10th of every month is the deadline of applying for
Hmm.
Niti Aayog. Everyone, it's like open to everyone, of course. Just that you fulfill a certain set of criterias, and you can apply and be a part of the government machinery in a
Hmm.
certain way. So that was how I got into the official youth engagement group, and I specifically looked after the communications team under my secretary. So I was basically the communications associate, and all the other associates under the communications team reported to me on, and I was basically reporting all of this on behalf. I was taking this reporting on behalf of the secretary, and I was
Hmm.
taking it back to the secretary. So
Right.
the
Let me
whole
stop you there. And why did you choose to work with Y20? Why not so many other places? So, what made you? Was there somebody guiding you, or what did you wanted to be a part of this earlier? And what is it that pushed you to apply for that? People might go to do so many different areas of work in the government, but why this Y20? And you knew that it is going to be in India, so you wanted to be a part of it. When did you decide?
Right. So, as soon as I had joined college, something that I started, my interests were also kind of, getting more finer, in the sense that I was gaining a better clarity as to what interests me, and, what are the things that I would like to do in future, right? And also college also played a very important part in kind of giving this particular shape to my imagination and to the ambitions that I had. And was that something that I wish to work in a certain way, which is public centric,
Mm,
and
mm,
public centric things could be in multiple ways, right?
mm.
And
Right.
public policy, working with people, working for people, was something that interested me a lot, right? And if you look at Y20 India, if you look at G20, you can't imagine, it's I think one of the largest youth centered initiative, or let's say it's one of the most mammoth exercise
Mm,
undertaken by the government, centered for youth. You're not going to have Y20 India every other year. G20 is not, India is not getting the presidency over the G20 every other year. It was after a long, that India got over the G20 presidency. And Y20 India, India has the largest youth population, right, in the world, across the world, and mind you, when I'm saying this. So India hosts world's largest youth population, and to get on the center stage of this process of impacting, of going to each and every youth out there in India is an exercise, is an
huge.
enormous exercise. Yeah, that gives you a lot of exposure and experience, right? And as someone who was already interested among people, interested in public policy, this was the place to be.
Mm.
And at
Shashwat, at the end, when you're finished now with the presidency is over now, next what? Are you going to represent India in other summits next year outside of India where it's happening? Is there a possibility of that also?
Right. So as of now, the so basically the World Youth Festival is going to happen in Russia, and it's
Okay.
yeah, being undertaken in association with the Ministry of Youth Affairs of Russia. So it's called
Okay.
Rosmodole in Russian, and it's roughly translated into Federal Agency of Youth Affairs, government of Russia. It's the and it has a national preparatory committee for India, and under which 11 Indians are part of that committee. I'm one of the Indians
Really?
who is
Wow.
part of the national committee of the World Youth Festival, and this is going to happen in March. So I will be traveling to Russia, Sochi, this March. So yeah, that's that.
Oh, I didn't know this. Congratulations in advance. Wow, what an opportunity. Out of 11 uh, Indians, you are one of them and you are on my channel. Wow, what more I can ask for? Fantastic learning. Maybe after you come back, we have another interview of your learnings from Russia. Right. It's great. So tell me, when you see this step ahead and now you're going to Russia and the world, you can travel anywhere, you can gain as much as you want out of this exposures. Now, where do you see yourself? You want to get into active politics?
Yeah, so as I said, the college played a lot of role in kind of shaping my interests, and as someone who has been part of student governments, at different levels, starting from school, councils and so on. I think, politics indeed, to me, I mean, to my mind, is a very important and useful tool to kind of serve the public, to kind of, bring and good to the people,
Mm-hmm.
bring and do good for people,
Mm-hmm.
for your community, for your country. And I think, if so to answer your question, it is indeed something that interests me, both in theory and praxis. And it's up to how things turn out to be,
Uh, all
if
right,
I
but it's
will
there in the
actively.
horizon. So you can, but not bureaucracy. You don't want to be in bureaucracy. You don't want to apply for UPSC, etc. Or you want to be with a party and party politics. What is going on?
But UPSC is definitely something that is expected out of me, especially by my parents. But I'm
Yes.
still figuring out, as someone who is 20 years old, I'm
Mm,
not even eligible for the Union Public Service Commission's civil services examinations. I will be eligible only in the next year when I'm 21. So that's the minimum eligibility criteria.
mm,
I'm only 20. So I haven't thought of it actually. Maybe next year I will even consider it. But as far as party politics is considered, it is definitely something that interests me. Yeah,
mm.
absolutely.
Right. You're at the right place at the right time. So you have met a lot of politicians, a lot of change makers during your 1 year tenure. So anybody, anything which comes to your mind which has left a lasting impression, and some words, or maybe you have met some personalities, some leaders whom you have said, yeah, this is I didn't know this side of this leader or politician. Would you like to share something which has impacted you?
Yeah. So definitely, I mean, if not impacted, but definitely, I would like to share some very interesting kind of anecdotes as part of
All
this whole
right,
process.
that's fun. Yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so imagine this. One day, you are supposed to and expected out of you, you are worried about assignment deadlines, right? You are worried
Okay.
about writing essays and so on. And then the very next day, you are supposed to formulate public policy with a set of people, with a set of bureaucrats, which is
Hmm.
going to impact your whole country and the youth of your country. This was the case. This was something that happened to me. I was only
COVID
19
19.
years old.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was only 19 years old back in December 2022,
Hmm.
when I was supposed to join a G20's official youth engagement group and work
Wow.
with with the bureaucracy and so on. And as a student, I was an undergraduate student. I was still in my, I guess, the later half of the second year, or I guess early third year, something like that, sometime around that. I was. And we used to have guests as ministers and so on. I had never thought of that at this age. I would
Mhm.
work with a minister. I would
Mhm.
work with a youth minister. So we tend to kind of look at ministers and senior politicians, if I were to put it that way, as someone who are constantly serious, very serious figure. And as part of this whole process, I figured out that how because we usually don't look at these people the way we look at, let's say, someone else, right?
Mhm.
We think of them as as someone who is very different from us and so on, right? But after working with this whole year, I think they are very much, they enjoy fun as much as we, all of us, do, right? From the very first meeting that I had with the Honorable Union Minister of Youth Affairs, Shri Anurag Thakur ji, which happened, on 22 Akbar Road. 22 Akbar Road. 22 is the bungalow number.
Mhm.
It was a chilly early morning, and I was supposed to give a presentation to the Honorable Union Minister as to what
Wow.
is going to be our, strategy for, media, social media communication, and so on. It was a very intimidating experience, and
Mhm.
this was something that I kind of became run of the mill, something that I kind of gotten used to. So yeah, I guess that is something that was very much out there.
This is it's like a part of a fairy tale. At 19, you get to meet such ministers, sitting with them across, and then actually presenting something where they are listening to you. You are not there to ask something, you are actually giving them something where they are going to listen to you. How did all this presentation happen? Did you have any experience of all this, or you had to learn from the scratch, policy making, presentation? You worked with a team, you were there,
Right.
somebody was guiding you.
Yeah, so I've been very fortunate enough to kind of work with a lot of these young leaders, and of course, we were in constant, touch with, and coordination with these very senior bureaucrats from the ministry, right?
Ah, yeah.
And we used to kind of, also, exchange ideas, work together, work on policy and so on. So I think they were also, in a certain way, creating an environment which allowed all of us as, youth leaders, and also made us comfortable in a certain way. And it was only, I guess, that particular kind of environment, that I guess allowed, all of us to, work quite, harmoniously
Good.
with the ministry. And of course, for the
Wonderful,
minister, yeah.
wonderful opportunity you got. And I'm sure the learnings are like even the colleges, St. Stephen's would not have taught you as much as working with. Apart from your the life of working with the youth and your part of your policy making, etc., whichever you learn, is there something else about which people might find surprising and which might find interesting in your personality, which you want to share? Like, for
Some
example, your biking.
Right. Right. So yeah, that is definitely something that I enjoy. I like, adventures. I like exploring. About, as far as biking is concerned, it started, when I came to college, when I joined college, right? And Delhi, because of its very proximity to, the Himalayas, right? Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh kind of gives you that accessibility, kind of use a long weekend, make a long weekend turn into a whole trip, right? So a very dear friend of mine, Saksham, both of, us were flatmates, and we, had this knack of kind of, and it's only something that we discovered, that we had this actually a knack of, exploring together and so on. So we have done treks together, we did biking together and and so on. We actually, in fact, some of these were, very dangerous, and I think they were also, in some way or the other, very impactful experiences, right? Because
Mm.
if I talk about the Spiti Valley, our trip from, Chandigarh, we took a, Himalayan, which is very well suited to mountains. It's a bike by the Royal Enfield. We took a bike from Chandigarh and took it all the way to Kaza. It's one of the remote places, one of the most remote places in India. Kaza is a in fact it also very close to Kaza. Very close to Kaza is this particular village called Comic, and it's Asia's one of the highest villages, right?
Mhm.
And it also has one of the world's highest petrol pump, right? So very
Okay.
remote places. This is just to give you an idea, right? So we have
Yes.
done this multiple instances. We have done a bike trip in Uttarakhand. In fact, two bike trips in Uttarakhand and one in Himachal Pradesh, and yeah, and all of these have been fascinating experiences. And I would rather encourage to our viewers who are watching this that, be out there, explore the world if you can, and it always has something for you to
Mhm.
learn, because you get to be with people, you get to meet a certain part of society that you would have otherwise not been able to blend in. It will definitely impact all learnings and all forms of knowledge, can't be accessed by books and traditional forms of
Right.
knowledge. So I think
Absolutely.
that's definitely an important way of, knowing the world better, knowing the world
Mm.
we live in. So that's
And
that.
maybe if you travel by flight, you are always in that that sanitized environment. You meet certain kind of people there in the airport, in the flight. But if you are on a road trip, you actually get to meet the soul of people of India. You actually connect. I think that's wonderful, and that's will add on to your experience for a lifetime. We wind up this beautiful session. See you again next week with another interview. Keep watching, keep subscribing to my channel, and share it with love so that it can grow into the biggest youth platform ever. Thank you, Shashwat, for being here.